Hello there, my friends. So I'm going to show you guys how I reskinned Spelljammer of the Darned. This Adventure League module, I pared it down so it was only 2.5 hours, and I also reskinned it for like a Cowboy Bebop / Alien kind of theme. So a little bit more of that suspense horror. So let's get into it. Okay, so here's what I did. Oops, let's get here. Yeah, I'm going to show you guys like pretty much what I did the whole way through. If I can get this to stay up. All right. So, yeah. So okay. So this is written as like kind of a 4-hour module, and most of the modules are. But this is really actually one of the better written ones. I think this author is really good because sometimes they're disjointed. The only thing is there were a lot of characters like NPCs, and I pared that down. Also, I was going for a Cowboy Bebop thing. If you guys know what that is, let me know in the comments below. If you don't, it's like the greatest anime of all time. A lot of people say, so you can check that out. Here's some stickers that I used actually and to represent some of the characters, but I just used Spike and Jet. So Jet Onyx and Spike Seagull is what I call those guys. So basically, the way it's written, it's based on the Rock of Brawl. Okay, so it's Spelljammer. So the Rock of Brawl is an asteroid that's populated, has atmosphere, all that kind of stuff. And there's some taverns on there, and this one's the Hog Spice Tavern. So at this tavern, they serve food and drink, but that's like you start in a tavern, right? So like that's what we're gonna do. That's like the classic way to like start a D&D adventure. So that's what I did. So what I did was I used these maps, and I have these are very heavy, but Tom Cartos makes these maps, and I have a couple videos about them, and they're pretty awesome. What they are these big flip books, and yeah, they're just like really useful. So what you do is, here's the front of it, right? So this one is forests and villages, and on the back it has a list of all the maps. So I used this one here to represent the tavern. Oh, this one here to represent the tavern. So it's 3 from the back. So it was this one. So I put this down here, and I set up the characters. I set up some figurines on the map, and let's see if I have those, so I can kind of show you exactly what I did. So this is like the quest givers, right? So what I did was I had these Lord of the Rings Legos, right? And I put these Lord of the Rings Legos out around this table. So I had like Gandalf the Grey talking to Frodo and Samwise, and as a distraction, just because like a kind of like a colorful flavor thing to give it a little bit of like a whimsical kind of like feel to it, a little whimsy, right? So and then I had Gollum with the ring like standing in the background, but so I said like, you must find the ring, Frodo. Oh, I'll do what you say. Sam says, Frodo, it's too dangerous, right? So, but that's the distraction. So what I did have is I had my characters over here, and they were Spike and Jet, and I also had Ein. So I had a character for a dog. So here's Jet. So Jet, I actually took a little marker and I made a little, goatee, sideburn kind of thing going on, because that's what Jet looks like in the series. And I had a character for Spike, and Spike has kind of greenish hair on top and a little bit of black hair, and so that was Spike. And then he's like he shoots a gun, so I had him like shooting the crossbow. And then I had Ein, and this is the only this is obviously like a collie or German Shepherd or whatever, but Ein is a corgi. But anyway, I had Ein here. So the players can't come in and they hear this, but then they hear Spike and Jet talking, and Spike says, I don't know, I hear there are killer clowns in outer space. And that's obviously a reference to Killer Clowns from Outer Space, the old, schlocky movie from the 80s. And Jet says, no, that's nonsense, Spike. That's just rumors. He said, but you do have to watch out for the vampirates. They're really, a thing. So I kind of gave him a little misdirection, because in this module, actually, there are stat blocks for vampirates, right? So why won't this stay up? Yeah, so there's stat blocks for vampirates, and you can use those. But I thought it'd be more interesting to have a killer clown. And the reason is there's an episode of Cowboy Bebop which kind of rips off Blade Runner a little bit. But anyway, there's this clown that's trained assassin, and his name's Piero Le Fou. And so here's the stat block for the vampirates, if you want to use vampirates. Or pirates. I used the vampirate captain stat block for Pierre Le Fou for the killer clown. But you can find actually killer clowns in the Spelljammer book, which I didn't happen to have, so I didn't use that. All right. So I'm kind of giving them a little bit of foreshadowing. And then they get the quest, and the quest comes from Ein, and it comes telepathically, right? So Ein's telling them it's Liar's Night Eve, and Liar's Night's going to be ruined if they don't get a whole bunch of candy, because there's a candy shortage for some reason. Ein likes candy corn, but there's a whole bunch of different candies. There's chocolate, there's peanut butter cups, all that kind of stuff. And of course, Ein's smart enough to know that that stuff is not good for him, so he wants the candy corn. And he also tells the player characters that there's treasure there as well. And he doesn't care about treasure because he's a dog. So they can keep all the treasure that they find. And so that's the impetus for the group to get onto the Bebop and go to explore a derelict ship on the edge of Doom space, right? So, again, Doom space. So that's what's going on. So that's how I get them out into the wild, right? So that's the quest. And Ein says that he has to talk to the player characters and get them to do it and not these two, because these two aren't smart enough to their brains are too small for him to communicate with them telepathically. So that's the thing. All right, I really got to figure this out. Yeah, so that's the thing. So that's the reason that they can't just do the quest themselves. So anyway, they get on the Bebop. So the Bebop, what I did for that was I had this module that I had gone to free RPG. All right, so I'm going to have to hold this because my clamp is broken. So I had this free. I went to Free RPG Day, and I got a prize, and it was this one shot. And so awesome, this one shot has an interior of a spaceship, right? So use this as the not to scale Bebop, right? So there's a lounge area where there's a couch, and there's over here could be the kitchen, and there's a exterior window to the outside. So they're all hanging out there, and there's a random encounter table in the actual module, and I'll show you that. So right here in Dead Space, you can have a bunch of things happen. You can roll on the table, but I just picked the asteroid spider because I wanted there to be a combat, and I wanted to use some of the resources, and then to make the players decide whether or not they want to take a short rest or a long rest, and then if there was a wrong rest, there were going to be consequences. Oh, also, I had the guys eat or drink at the tavern, and if they did, I was going to have consequences from that. Honestly, I forgot to do that. But what I was going to do is have them feel unwell, sick to their stomachs if they ate, and if they drank, they were going to be okay. But there's this thing in the Cowboy Bebop episode where they have parasites, and the parasites affect their vision and that kind of stuff. And it had a mechanic that was going to affect their vision later and remind me to tell you about that. But yeah, so they meet this asteroid spider, which is huge, just gargantuan asteroid that looks like a spider. Well, I don't have a big spider things, so I used this instead. So I used this. My wife crocheted this last year while I was teaching the summer camp, and this is obviously not a giant spider; it's a giant hedgehog. But again, like I like to have fun and laugh when I do my things. So like this, but this represents kind of almost a scale. It's gargantuan. It's really big, and it's an adversary. And basically, they don't have to kill this thing. They just have to deter it so that it's thinking it's going to get a free lunch, and the players just have to like basically deter it. So they have to do like 150 damage, and they're level 5 and above. This is a tier 2, so the characters are between levels 5 and 10. And if you don't know what that means, put it in the comments. I'll explain eventually to you on another video. But so they've got some hitting power, and this gives all 5 players, there are 5 players at my table, a chance to like show their stuff and show each other like how their mechanics work. And they can like practice too, because like there was a dude there that's only played a couple times, and so he was playing with a dwarf character, and he was trying to figure out, he was a paladin, and he was trying to figure out his smite and all that kind of stuff. So we did that. So basically he runs away after a while, but he has a web that he like can cast and like capture the ship. He can pull people towards him. That didn't work. The guy that he targeted was a rogue, and the rogue had like reliable talent, and so basically has a sleight of hand. Like he can just basically escape, no problem. So he did, and but then I made him have they asked if there were any weapons on the ship, so I made like a ballista kind of turret here, and the guy was here, and then he got into. The rogue was here, and he was shooting at him, and then this thing closed into melee range and tried to bite him, and did. And then some other people shot at it, and eventually he like ran off. So that was like the part 1 encounter, right? So part 2, the Bebop gets to the planet, right? So they get to the planet, and there's a crashed ship on the planet, and there's like so what I did was I used a cave, and then I used like a battle map that you can actually draw on. So I'll show you that here. So again, I used Tom Cartos' map Into the Wilds, and I think this is the second set. I had a friend, we mixed them up. I have volume 2, he has volume 1, but we like mixed the books, so don't quote me on this, but when you go to his website, check it out. It's really awesome. Actually, I need to like interview him on the podcast. If you're out there watching this, go ahead and contact me. I'll interview you. So like I use this big double map, which is pretty awesome. So like these maps are cool because like they'll have like stuff on them, but then they'll have the exact same map on the next page with nothing, so that you can add your own stuff. So I use this map. So the Bebop's here, and then they have to go through here in order to get to the other ship, the derelict ship that's crash landed and has its cargo bay doors open here. So I made them go through here without incident, and they were being stealthy and taking their time, but there was a severed arm here, and they were like taking a long time like being careful about the arm. I guess they thought it was necrotic or was undead or something like that. So they finally figure out that it's like the severed forelimb of a thrykean, right? So it looks like an insect arm or an arthropod, right? So they get to this part of the entrance, and then I put a map, like a grid map that you can draw on there. So I'll get that. Hang on. So what I did at first was I just took this like map that represents like wooden boards and said it was a wooden ship, and just put this up against the cave entrance. So one person goes in first, and he steps on a teleportation circle, and he's instantly teleported away. So what I did with that was I took a different map, and it was just folded over like this, and I put it off to the side, and I said, okay, you're in a room like this. Now he's in this room, and he ends up running into a killer clown. And it was just random. Like I didn't know which room he was going to go to. I rolled for it, and he ends up seeing a killer clown hanging out at a stove, like cooking something. It smells like lobster bisque in here. But what it really is, it's the rest of the thrykean that he's got in a pot, and he's boiling it. And I just imagine it would smell like lobster, right? So the player character's here, and he's seeing this kind of grotesque thing going on. And I adapted that from what's in the module. In the module, there's actually a non-player character that they kind of very thinly veil is a Gordon Ramsay kind of character. And and he's cooking like this creature, and then there's a live plasmoid in a jar next to it. Well, I made the plasmoid dead, right? So so that's what I did, and then yeah, I made that dead. So what I decided to do was have them fight. So he basically gets in the room. This creature like gives him like holds onto him and drains his life, which is a vampiric stat in the stat block. But I made it the killer clown one like thing because I just thought it was an interesting dynamic. The second player goes in and steps on the teleportation circle, and he ends up in a small room by himself where there's really nothing except like a dead rat in the corner and some cobwebs. So he decides, he's going to like leave. And when he leaves, then he sees that, the other players like are all careful about this teleportation circle, but absolutely nothing comes of it. And then eventually they find out that they're just in separate parts of the ship. And so I drew the ship. And so here was the teleportation signal. Here was a control panel. Here I had a prop. Let me see if I can find it. Yeah, here I had a prop, and it's basically just an eyeglass case. So it opens, there's a hinge on one side. I'm trying to open this one-handed. It's kind of strong, so like it opens up like that. And in the module, this is a coffin because that's where the vampire captain sleeps. But what I did was I adapted, the from the episode, it's called Toys in the Attic from Cowboy Bebop. There's a creature that what happened was Spike left like a lobster or something in a refrigerator for over a year, and it like mutated into like some kind of creature, and it gets out. It's basically a black blob, and I'm thinking like, what can I use as a black blob, right? So what I ended up, I'm looking all over my house, I can't figure anything out, and then what I ended up using was a dice bag, right? And that makes sense because we all have these little velvet dice bags, right? So I used this dice bag as like the blob that comes out and runs out. So the first person that like opens up, and it also was emitting cold. So it was like magically emitting cold. So it was a refrigerator or a freezer basically. And then this thing like pops out and runs away. And I didn't have it attack, and I should have had him like attack and then run away, disengage. But it all worked. I was trying to create like a jump scare horror element to it, right? And then I had a chest over here and some barrels. What I wanted to do, and they didn't go back to that because they sprung this too early, was I wanted them to like mess around with this control panel. It has a whole bunch of crystals in it. I was thinking like Land of the Lost from like way back in the 70s, 80s, 70s, I think. And it was magical. And if they messed around with this in order to get light to come up, anybody with dark vision was going to be at a disadvantage with sight checks or attacks using sight. Because everybody like, there's this old cliche about like, people, go into a cave, and then as soon as they go in the cave, they're like, I have dark vision. And DMs, in this cliche, like hate that. So I thought, well, I will make everyone who has dark vision have disadvantage because there's going to be like this flashing strobe light. So I was going to like put on that like alien kind of like pulsing, annoying light thing going on. And that was going to interfere with like their ranged attacks, or anything they needed to do with sight, and I was going to make them like try to like find things they can do without, maybe magic stuff like that, magic missile, etc. Things that automatically hit. So they ended up, I ended up forgetting. They didn't trip it, so I didn't have that. I should have had it go on anyway, and then they could try to like stop it, but I didn't, and I forgot. So. Or I should have enforced it. But in the next one, I probably will. And I just tell you so that you can have that dynamic in your game. Another guy went over to this chest here and opened it, and I had a xenomorph pop out, right? So I had a dragon pop out, and I made him a black dragon, spits acid, and bleeds acid when he gets killed, and of course has bite and claw attacks. So, so I made him like the alien from Aliens, right? So he attacks one guy who gets hurt, and then they, attack it and finish it off. Later in the episode, there was a character who was exploring this barrel, and he said, well, I have a bear trap in my inventory. So he was thinking that another xenomorph or black dragon wormling was going to jump out. And it was a wormling, not a young dragon, because there are too many hit points. Wormlings have about 33 hit points, I think, which was enough for these guys. And then I was going to have a whole bunch of them. We were starting to get low on time. I like going about 2.5 hours, so like I limited that. Plus, I thought it would get repetitive, and I already had a different kind of monster come out, and I had 3 different monsters. But I could have more xenomorphs, and I think next time I might, because then you get that sense of the second Alien movie where there's just aliens everywhere. They're in the walls, But so he opens this, and he expects a xenomorph to pop out, but he has a bear trap. And so whenever anybody has a bear trap, I just have a bear pop out, right? So like there's this joke, and I absolutely love it. There's a bear trap in the middle of a dungeon. And as soon as somebody like sets the bear trap off and closes it, a bear runs out and attacks. It's as if the bear had been waiting somewhere just for that to happen. So I did the opposite here, which was he sets a bear trap, the bear comes out and gets trapped. And then he looks at the barrel and says, well, it couldn't have been a very large bear. And I'm like, oh, no, it's a small bear. And then the player character is like, oh, my God, I had this story about this baby bear. And so there's this whole story about him and his dad and all this other stuff. But he ends up with this like baby bear, a small bear skin carpet. And he thought it'd be cool to take it to college with him, and he did, but like everybody hated it because it was a small bear, and they felt sympathy for the bear. So that became like a little aw kind of moment, which I did not intend, but those guys really played that up. And afterwards, I said in like the Discord, we have a Discord where we talk about adventure rewards, and I'll talk about that here. I said, will you get everybody gets a small bearskin carpet that's pretty much suitable for being like a bath mat. And the one guy said, well, if it was 5 bear skin carpets, it must have been a big bear. And I said, oh, you're right. It's a small bear. Basically, you get bear skin earmuffs, and then you have -2 to cold damage if you wear them. So I just made that up. But anyway, we get, this part right here where this guy teleported to is actually the bow of the ship. And then, so we got him there. And then we have this black monster. Where did I put the black ink thing? I can't remember where I put it. And, so we had that. Here it is. Go up here, and then the guy who got teleported here comes out, and he sees this thing go up the hallway. So there's 3 threats, right? So they have to handle threats. And this is the black pudding stat. This is the black dragon wormling stat, and this is the vampire rate captain's stat block. So that's what I used for that. And I simplified it. And there's a hidden safe. There's candy here. They get all the candy back basically after they defeat everybody. And it was supposed to be like more of a suspense kind of thing. And what I should have done is added more exploration and not sprung them one at a time. But I wanted to keep them separate. I wanted that sense of like isolation from the Alien movie. And I think I got a little bit of it, but I think I could have drawn it out a little bit more with a little more time. So basically they succeed. They get a Cloak of Doom, which is actually a Cloak of the Bat. And that goes with the vampire theme. But I said the clown was wearing a cloak, so they get that cloak. They did find a potion of healing, but one of the characters used it, so they didn't get that. I didn't get to these things, but these are the adventure rewards that are in the module, so you can use those. And you want to buy this module and support this guy. I mean, I assume it's for sale. But look at all these, like the dramatis personae, right? So the Candy King's a rat. That ended up being Ein, the dog. Captain Hershey Cane ended up being the killer clown, Pierre Le Fou. These guys are 2 vampire guards. They're kind of like inept. I did away with them. Wolfric Ramsey is the cook, and I combined him with the killer clown. Sour Patch is the plasmoid that was in that glass jar. So let me tell you about that. So the guy that was in this room grabs the glass jar. He's strong. He's the dwarf, and he comes out and he sees this black pudding and he throws it. Because I said the plasmoid inside. I said there's a purplish liquid inside, but it's kind of grayish. And so it was already dead, basically. So he throws the canister at it, and I had like a chemical reaction happen between the black pudding and the plasmoid. So that was kind of a fun flavor. M&M is another one. Major Sugar, Strawberry Cream,
could you imagine like having all these NPCs? Like that's just too many. So like I don't want to confuse the characters. I already had like the Lord of the Rings NPCs, which was incidental. I had Jet, Ein, and Spike. So there's three. I had these uh, enemies. That's enough, right? For a one shot. That's what I'm thinking anyway. Tell me if I'm wrong. But like, I don't want this to be War and Peace. I don't want there to have to be like these guys have to write everything down and remember every name. So I made it as simple as I could. And this is a pretty simple drawing of ship, right? So like pretty basic stuff. And then they go back and they get the rewards. They give Ein all the candy corn. They keep all the candy, and then they find like $1,000 worth of rubies in the room. And the one player character said, is it rock candy?" And I was like, "It is now." So the rubies were among the rock candy. A couple of them cracked their teeth trying to figure out what's a ruby and what's a rock candy. So that was kind of a cool thing. And then they go back and they save the day, and they're heroes in the tavern and on the Rock of Brawl for saving a Liar's Night by getting all the candy back. So that's the conclusion. I thought it was a pretty fun story. Obviously, it was written for like Halloween, so having those spooky elements are cool, even though right now it's the middle of July, and the reason you're seeing my hairy arm is I usually wear long sleeves. It's so hot right now. But yeah, that's the recap of my Adventure League night for the Spelljammer campaign that I called Spelljam Bebop, but which was actually an official Spelljammer module called, what was it called? Spelljammer of the Durned. And I have kids that watch my videos, so I try not to swear. Yeah, so if there's any questions you have about how I ran this, let me know. If this is helpful to you, let me know, because I will do more videos like this on how I reskin these things, because I always do. I have to for time usually, because usually they're written for 4 hours and I only have 2.5 to 3 hours to play these things. So I got to cut some stuff out and consolidate things. Plus, I like making it easier for me as a DM, because let's face it, we're all busy people, and I don't have all week to prepare for these things. I do like to when I can, and I do have some free time. That's why I do this. But we want to make this stuff as simple as possible. So, as Gandalf says, "None shall pass." No, I don't know. I don't know how to sign off, but I'm just rambling at this point. Thanks everybody for subscribing to the channel. We're at 16,000 subscribers almost. I appreciate you. Again, tell me in the comments what you want to see next. I love making content, and I need direction and guidance from you guys, who are the ones that are watching my videos, I assume. And I love D&D, and I love teaching players how to play and DMs how to DM. So this is helpful. Let me know. Have a great day, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace out.